Welcome to Sri Acharyaji's hosted talk, where we will be discussing more of a different topic, discussing the nature of masculinity today in the positive sense. And this will be mostly a Q&A after Acharyaji gives a brief introduction. But please, this is going to be a text-only questions session. So please ask your questions in the text chat. And without further introduction, I will pass it over to Sri Acharyaji.
Very good, wonderful. Namaste, everyone. Very good, wonderful. Well, first of all, Krishna Prasada, thank you very much for introducing what we're going to be doing today. And before we begin, with everyone's indulgence, I would like to first just say a few mantras, and then I will proceed to explain what it is that we are doing today with this session. So first, just a few mantras. Jaya Shriman Narayana, Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna, Jaya Shri Guru, Sanatana Dharma Jayate, Dharma Rashtra Jayate, Suryavansha Jayate. Victory to Sanatana Dharma, victory to the Dharma nation, victory to the eternal solar dynasty. Evam bhavatu. May it be so. And with that, everyone, I thank you very much for being here today. Before we proceed, let me just explain to people what we're going to be doing today. This is a live Q&A here on Discord, in which we have a very, very specific topic, and that is masculinity in the Kali Yuga. Now, just to let people know, I am not going to be giving a formal talk in any way. I will be doing one or two very quick readings. And what I want this to be, more than anything, is a pure Q&A session where people are free to ask me any question regarding masculinity. And certainly, if you have overtly philosophical questions about masculinity, that's fine. But more than anything, what I would like for people to do is ask me personal questions about what it means to be a man in the world today, very practically. Relationships, dealing with a culture that considers masculinity toxic, etc., etc. I want this to be something very personal, where if you yourself need guidance in what it means truly to be fully manifest in your masculine self as a man, this is what I want you to ask me about, very specifically. I am not going to be taking questions on general philosophy or even on Sanatana Dharma generally. This is very specifically geared toward, again, what it means to be a man in the Kali Yuga, and what personal issues, problems, life situations, etc. you yourself have encountered. So this is what we're going to be doing today. So again, I thank you for being here. Before we proceed with any questions and answers, first I just want to read two very quick things, and this is very specifically from Principles of Perfect Leadership, from our latest book that has come out. And there are several aphorisms in here that deal specifically with what it means to be a man, but there are two specific ones that I want to read to everyone, just as a way of beginning our discussion today. The first, if you have the book, is chapter 2, and this is aphorism number 17, very specifically, and it proceeds in this way. Much of the male population in modern and postmodern Western societies have suffered, either directly or unconsciously, from the debilitating effects of a systematic campaign of de-virilization that has been artificially imposed upon them against their will. Through the means of operational propaganda and subtle psychological warfare conducted primarily through the media, entertainment, and educational systems, otherwise strong and virile men have been bullied into suppressing the natural urge to fully express their organic and healthy masculine tendencies. As a direct result of this malevolent campaign of anti-masculinity, many males in modernity have now found themselves experiencing debilitating feelings of emasculization, disempowerment, and lacking the healthy confidence that their fathers and grandfathers before them intrinsically wielded. Not only have men themselves suffered as a result of this malevolent anti-masculinity agenda, but all of Western society has now suffered due to the absence of strong and effective men and fathers, and thus strong and effective leaders in our societies. Strong leaders arise from strong men. Where strong men are in short supply, there will necessarily be a lack of true leadership. It is crucial that this deep-rooted damage that has been inflicted upon men now be thoroughly reversed, and that the re-virilization of men now occur in all of Western society. That is the first aphorism that I wanted to offer everyone. The second is from chapter 2, and this is aphorism 6 from Principles of Perfect Leadership. And this is a syllogism. For those who understand logic, there are syllogisms, interestingly, both in Western logic, but also actually in Vedic logic as well, in what is called the Nyaya school of logic. Whereas in Western logic, there are 3 lines in a syllogism. In Vedic logic, there are 5 lines in a syllogism, interestingly. And I've decided to go with the traditional Western approach of three lines in the syllogism. 1. What it means to be a fully true man is to fully know your true self. 2. It is only via the discipline of meditation that you can fully know your true self. And then the conclusion. 3. Therefore, fully true men are only those men who engage in the discipline of meditation. And that ends that aphorism. So just a little bit of food for thought for individuals as we commence. And I just want to say one last thing, actually. Even though this is a men's discussion, I know that there are a few women here as well. Women are more than welcome to attend. This is not something that's meant to be exclusive, where we're barring women from attending. On the contrary, women are welcome to be here as well. And in addition to this, I will also be doing a Q&A exclusively for women as well. In approximately a month and a half, maybe 2 months at the most, something like that. In the women's group right now, they're going through the Shakti principle. So essentially, when they're finished with that, then at that point I will be doing a Q&A exclusively for our women. So with that, again, I thank you for being here, and let me see if there are any questions that anyone has about masculinity, or again, anything very personal in your own life that you would like guidance with. And I open the floor of the chat. Please feel free to ask questions. Very good. Here is a good question. The question is, Namaste Sri Acharyaji, to what degree should a man limit friendships with women who are in committed relationships, especially those who are married? Should we avoid spending time with them alone? Excellent question, actually. This is a very good question, and let me tell you what both the Vedic standard is specifically, but then also generally speaking, as far as traditional societies. The answer to this question is that, as far as friendship, yes, friendship in the pure sense of that word is perfectly fine. However, yes, there must be limits, there must be demarcations as far as a man associating with a woman who is married, who is in a very committed relationship, etc. And you stated it well here, very specifically as far as spending time alone, especially. Again, if it's a matter of an individual male associating with, even being friends with a married couple and being with the married couple and doing things together, etc., well, that's a very different thing. But when it comes to the idea of, a man and a married woman, someone who's married to someone else, just hanging out all the time and being alone together in a home, in an apartment, doing things alone, etc., etc. Yes, that's to be avoided as much as possible, and that for many, many different reasons, of course, including the fact that it will lead to friction between the married man and woman. It leads to temptation on the part of both individuals. It just ends up leading to something that's very uncomfortable for both individuals. It does not look good socially, which is something that is important actually, because every serious devotee, every serious Vaishnava follower of Sanatana Dharma always has to keep in mind that they are an example to others as well in society. So they don't want gossip to occur, etc., etc. So that's the answer to that question. As far as, let's say, peripheral friendship between a man and, let's say, a married woman, yes, peripheral friendship is fine, but again, it should not be an exclusive friendship between a man and a married woman, because then it leads to problems. So I hope that answers the question. Very good. Yes, this is a question that is not 100% in keeping with what we're talking about today, but it's not far off either, actually. It's a very good personal question. And the question is, as a person wanting to live according to Dharma, how should I approach the feeling of being an imposter on this path? Acknowledging my past deeds makes me think that I may just be some kind of faker of sorts, which I do not wish to be. Would the answer be practice Dharma, like mantra meditation, in spite of that worry of not being sincere? Thank you for these talks. They are truly helpful. Wonderful. Well, thank you for that wonderful question, and thank you for saying that these talks are helpful. That's my aim with all the talks that I give. Let me say several things. First of all, interestingly, what you have expressed is something I've heard from quite a few people over the years, and that is an individual who is either somewhat new to this path, or sometimes it even comes from individuals who are not that new from this path, on this path. People who might have been on this path for several years, actually. It gets to the point where they start to question themselves. They start to question their own sincerity, their own humility, their own motivations, and they begin to question whether indeed, am I just an imposter pretending to be spiritual, etc. Let me say several things about this. There are both good and bad things about this experiential phenomenon. There are good things in that, on the one hand, this is an acknowledgement of humility. It's an acknowledgement that, however long I've been practicing this, whether I just started a week ago or I've been doing this for 5 years, it is very good actually to check in on yourself once in a while, to monitor yourself once in a while, to ask yourself, what are my motivations? Are my motivations in fact actually sincere, or are they not? Am I indeed just going through these motions in order to impress other people around me, or am I really truly trying to understand God and trying to truly grow spiritually? It is good to monitor ourselves like this once in a while. Indeed, this is how we grow, is by such healthy self-questioning. So that's the positive aspect, is that often when a person begins to feel this, you see, let me state it this way. A truly bad person very rarely begins to have doubts in themselves. A truly bad person who was an imposter would very rarely, if at all, worry about whether they are an imposter. They would simply revel in the fact that they are, if this makes sense. So the very fact that you're worried about this, in and of itself, shows that there is a good degree of sincerity within you, and that you're not a bad person. So all that is the good aspect of sometimes having a little bit of self-doubt, and again, just questioning your own motivations once in a while. The bad part is when indeed you are a good and sincere person and you find yourself on this path and you begin to question yourself in an overly unhealthy sort of way, where it's not merely a sort of self-reflection, but you have serious self-doubts. And that's certainly not something that's good. That's certainly something that can lead to debilitation, where indeed a person can be so lacking in self-confidence, a person can be so lacking in knowledge of themselves, in faith in themselves, etc., to the point where it becomes debilitating, and you begin to truly believe something negative about yourself that is not true. Well, that's something that we wish to avoid as much as possible as well. See, this is the converse. This is the negative aspect of indeed wondering, oh, am I an imposter? If indeed you are not an imposter, and again you begin to question this to the point where you stop following the path, well, then that was unhealthy. And to answer the last thing that you ask here about what is the solution, indeed the solution is, whatever you do, to absolutely continue with the path, to not give up. Because you see, theoretically, either way you should continue with the path. Continuing with the path, indeed, doing mantra meditation, following all of the teachings of this path, etc., will help you whether you are sincere or not. That's what's interesting. Of course, if you're sincere, the progress is infinitely faster. And I'm assuming that you are indeed sincere, otherwise you would not ask this question. So indeed, I would absolutely continue with the path, and please do not worry about this. Again, don't let this be something that is debilitating, that stops you from wanting to continue to grow spiritually, and to instead, if for right now having full faith in yourself is something that's difficult, have faith in God, have faith in Guru, have faith in the path itself, and indeed continue to take shelter of the holy names of Sriman Narayana in meditation, and what you will find is everything will in time become clarified. You will begin to understand yourself in such a way that you will still retain that important humility on the one hand, while on the other hand, not having a debilitating self-doubt. So continue the path, if anything, deepen your participation in the path. So I hope that helps. But here is a good question, and it proceeds in this way. Namaste, Sri Acharyaji. For those of us who are fathers, when do you feel is the right time in terms of age and development for us to discuss what's really happening in the world with our children, akin to the points you raised in your recent interview? This was an interview, just as an aside, that I did with Alex Jones, about 2 weeks ago or so. It's available on all of our platforms except for YouTube if you want to see that interview I did on InfoWars. And then I'll continue with his question. This is more relevant given the sustained assault on children by those nefarious elements, which appears to be happening earlier in a child's education and with a greater ferocity, aiming to destabilize any dharmic influences. Furthermore, how do we approach this while still enabling our children to become high achievers in their various fields within the establishment, without necessarily having to unlearn what they were once taught and took for granted as fact, like many of us did? Jaya Sriman Narayana. Very good. Excellent question, and of course there are several questions within this question, and I will definitely address this. This is something that is of extreme importance, and let's begin with how you begin this. For those of us who are fathers, indeed, to be, for a man, for a true man, to be a father is indeed one of the most important roles that he will fulfill in his life. As men, we have several roles that we have to fulfill throughout the course of our life. Of course, early on we are children and we are dutiful children to our parents, especially hopefully if they are good parents. Eventually we become students, etc., etc. We eventually become married and we become wonderful partners to our wife, who in turn is a wonderful partner to us. But then eventually, God willing, and with God's blessings, we become a father to one or more children. And this especially is one of the most important roles that a parent will that a man will fulfill. This being the case because at this point, certainly a man should have reached the full fruition of his maturity to be a father, number one, but also, oh, what a sacred role this is. You are serving now, having been guided all of your life by so many mentors, by the guru, etc., etc. Now as a father, you are serving in the role yourself as a guide. This is a sacred role in which you have these little ones, these children who are there as a result of you. They are your offspring, and so thus in many ways they reflect who you are. They reflect your DNA, they reflect your mindset, etc., etc. What they will be in the future will to a large degree be as a result of what you taught them. That being the case, again, this is an important role. So now going on to your actual questions here. At what time is it a good time to discuss serious things with your children? That is, what is happening in the world. Again, the kind of things that Alex Jones asked me about were quite serious. Quite serious. Real things going on in the world. Serious abuses that are happening in the world, and indeed abuses of children, etc. We talked about much of this during that 1-hour interview. At what point should you discuss this with your children? Let me say one of two things. Either as late as is possible, and if that is not a possibility, when it is necessary. So in other words, and it's interesting, I was discussing this with someone the other day, it is important for children, if we're going to raise children to be healthy and happy, to try in every way to preserve their innocence and their goodness for as long as possible. Within reason, realistically. They're going to be adults eventually. We can't baby them when they're 30 years old. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about a young child who is 5, 7, 10 years old, even 12, something like this, when they are truly a child. We want to preserve that sacredness of innocence in them for as much as possible. There is nothing as sacred when it comes to a child as their innocence. So, unless, again, there is a reason to discuss such terrible things with them, we should do our best to not discuss such things with them. Allow them to continue to grow in their innocence, but at the same time, and hopefully I'll answer several of your questions at once with what I'm saying, at the same time, of course, again, we need to guide them strongly in what they are learning in school, with what they are learning from the media, from the culture, from their video games, much of which is terrible, is indeed demonic, is meant, interestingly, to harm them, which will harm them if they're allowed to just immerse themselves in materialistic media and culture. We are to guide them as much as possible, and that is that whatever negative messages they get from any of these venues that I mentioned, any of these platforms, these directions that I mentioned, we are then to do everything to give them counter messaging. So if they're told terrible anti-spiritual, anti-religious things, if they're told materialistic things, denigrating, hedonistic sorts of ideologies and philosophies, etc., we are to do everything in our power to very calmly, and again, retaining their innocence. We don't have to go into detail. We don't need to do that. Our raising our children is more about them, not just getting things off of our chest. No, that's a good parent. They understand, no, what I'm saying to my child is for their benefit. But we are to give them counter messaging, where indeed we explain that, oh, no, I know you heard this from your teacher, that 90% of of the human population falls under the LGBTQ category now, etc., etc. They almost make it seem that way, like it's 90%. You are to simply give them the truth, the facts. That no, that's not the case. This is a tiny minority of individuals, and the vast majority of individuals indeed are what we call heterosexual or straight, and they will have marriages of a man and a woman, and then they'll have children, etc. You explain to them what is traditional wisdom versus modern propaganda. That's what you explain to them. And again, without emotion, just in a very matter-of-fact way, and you explain it to them in accordance with their age. Now, this gets back to how you began your question, at what age? It is not possible to tell you this. Again, the answer is in accordance with necessity. Now, probably there's no necessity, I would hope, God willing, my God, I would hope, there's no necessity to discuss such things if a child is, let's say, 4, 5, 6 years old, but these days, who knows? But again, I would say when the necessity arises, that is, your child comes home and says, oh, Dad, this was really weird. I was in school today and they brought in 3 men with beards who were dressed like women in women's wigs. I don't understand. Well, now there's a necessity, you see, to discuss this with them. And again, in a way that benefits them, not just getting things off your chest. So yes, this does indeed have to be done, etc. And I hope that answers all of your questions. Don't want to go through the entire thing, all your questions again, but if it does not, if I miss something, please feel free to just let me know. But I hope that answers everything. That is what we are to do as fathers. Very good. Here is another question, and it is Namaste Acharyaji. I often struggle with feelings of inadequacy in my masculinity, especially regarding brahmacharya and sexual desire. Being inactive sexually and having never experienced it myself, for young men, it is seen as emasculating in the sexually obsessed culture of today, and I struggle with these desires myself. How can we approach and deal with these lustful desires in a sattvic way? Very good, wonderful. So what you're essentially asking is really 2 things. That is, being a celibate young man, I assume, how do you continue to do this in a healthy way, in a peaceful way? But you're also asking about struggling with inadequacy about your masculinity. Very good. Well, again, not to sound like a broken record, but both of these things that you're asking about, many young men are suffering with today, are struggling with today. So again, do not feel alone. Let me answer this actually in the opposite order. First, dealing with brahmacharya. Now, I don't know your age, but again, I assume that you're a young man, if indeed you say that you have not engaged in any sort of sexual experience so far, etc. And how do you retain brahmacharya in a healthy sort of way? How do you deal with lustful desires? First, let me speak about the very practical aspect of what it means to be brahmacharya, and then maybe I'll speak a little bit more philosophically about this. First of all, as far as practicing brahmacharya or celibacy, indeed, like everything else that we do spiritually, and not just spiritually, interestingly, in many ways, in many fields of concern, we need to do everything in a very healthy, very balanced, very non-fanatical sort of way. And when it comes to being brahmachari especially, what this means is, on the one hand, and please keep in mind you're dealing with someone who's had at least 45 years of experience in the realm of brahmacharya, dealing with brahmacharis, witnessing other individuals who attempted to practice brahmacharya, etc. Sometimes this can be done in an unhealthy way, where, interestingly, in an attempt to practice celibacy, what ends up happening is, in order to reinforce the idea that, oh yes, I have to be celibate under any circumstances, a person will go too extreme, and they'll begin, for example, to see, women as the enemy. and oh, women are bad and they're all trying to seduce me and I need to avoid all women's company no matter what. I can't even look upon the brow of a woman, etc., etc. No, we have to approach this in a very healthy, very balanced sort of way. Trust me, women are not the enemy, and trust me, men are not the enemy of women. On the contrary, it should be on the contrary, actually. So indeed, we have to take a healthy approach, and what this means is, first of all, understanding why is it that we are practicing brahmacharya. You know, it's not something that's meant to torture us. It's not merely a challenge for its own sake, but rather it's due to all of the positive benefits of what it means to be a celibate man, one of which is tremendous inner calm and peace. So indeed, if a person is trying to practice, if a man is trying to practice brahmacharya, and yet despite that they are seeing that, oh, I'm not peaceful, then it's not being practiced in a balanced sort of way, because indeed it should produce peace. So several things to be said. Again, while not being crazily fanatical and avoiding and even talking to a woman on the one hand, on the other hand, what we do want to do is avoid any sort of situations that indeed produce feelings of lust in us. So of course that means with everything that we do, that means with everything that comes into the senses. You see, what is it that produces lust? It is what comes into the senses. The senses meaning the six senses, including mind. You can be sitting there, not engaging in your senses, but even in your mind, you'll be thinking about sex or some woman you're attracted to or something like this. So indeed, what it means to be celibate in a very practical way is to avoid such things happening as much as is truly possible and feasible. Again, without being some weird fanatic and not ever looking upon the face of a woman, you avoid images where, women are scantily clad or where there's some sort of sexuality being depicted in a movie, on television, anything like this. You avoid music that speaks about such things, etc., etc. So this is what we are to do on the one hand, that is delustify, if that's a word, our lives on the one hand. But then on the other hand, of course, it's not enough simply to do this via negativa. To just say, okay, no sex, no sex, no sex. That's only half of the practice. The other half is indeed to fill that gap that is there with things that are truly sattvically positive as much as is possible. And that means, of course, first and foremost, sadhana. That means do as much meditation as you can. Again, not being fanatical, but do as much as you can. Focus on God as much as possible. Bring God into your life, into your mind, into even your senses as much as possible. You see, in the same way that we avoid bringing lustful ideas or images, etc., into our senses, now we do the opposite. We bring divine images, thoughts, etc. into our senses. We try to think of God as much as possible. We have images of Krishna, images of Sriman Narayana in the form of anything, posters, murtis. And we look upon these, we meditate upon these calmly, focusing on our breath and focusing on the beauty of this image of God as much as possible. We listen to divine music, to spiritual music, and certainly first and foremost, that would mean kirtan and bhajana, but more than this, anything that is sattvic, even listening to Bach, actually. I love classical music. I love Western classical music. I always have, and I find myself actually listening to it in recent years now more than ever. Listen to beautiful, beautiful music, and on like this. And in this way, again, practice-wise, you are doing what is necessary to be celibate. Also, as much as possible, associate with other individuals who are celibate. You see, if you try to do this in absolute isolation, that is difficult. But indeed, seek the association of other individuals who are practicing the same thing. Seek their satsangha as much as possible. And in this way, you become inspired and you inspire them. So, this is the first thing that I want to say about brahmacharya. But then you speak about feelings of inadequacy in your masculinity. Indeed, let me tell you, the only way, and you are not alone. There are probably millions of men and young men in America alone, what to speak of the world, who are feeling this. And why is this the case? Well, what I read in Principles of Perfect Leadership. This is why I read this. Is because there has been indeed a systematic campaign for decades now, at least 2, maybe 3 generations, in which there has been a systematic attempt to make men no longer feel like men, and more, not have a path through which they can discover what it means to be a man. This has been deprived from men on purpose. So indeed, this feeling of inadequacy in one's masculinity is something that millions of people are feeling. Well, the answer to this is actually more simple yet more powerful than many young men understand. And that is, you want X thing, practice X thing. You want to know how it truly feels to be masculine. In everything that you do, practice masculinity. Now, this is the problem. Is that, again, such models have been taken away from us in recent times. Oh, but they are still there. Number one, they are there today, but especially if you look into the past. Find those role models who are masculine either in the past, historically, or today. Follow their example as much as is possible. And more, begin to act in a masculine way. What does this mean? This means that in every way, make yourself strong, make yourself courageous. Come in contact with that inner masculine essence that as a man is there within you. It's there. You see, this is the thing. If you are a man, that masculine essence, it is there. It's just a matter of uncovering it. And the way that you uncover it internally is that you practice it externally. So become strong. What does this mean? You know, it's interesting. This is just a very personal aside, actually. You know, I love going to the gym and lifting weights specifically. That's primarily what I do. I don't so much do, let's say elliptical exercises. A little bit I do, but not much. I don't so much do treadmill or anything like that. I lift weights. And it's interesting. I was just having a casual conversation with someone maybe a few weeks ago. And I said, you know, one reason why I love lifting weights is because it makes me feel like a man. When I do it, I feel masculine. It's not something that I consciously try to do. After I've lifted weights for an hour and I'm done and I come home and I have my protein shake, I feel more masculine. And this is something that's tangible. It's something that is biologically real. It's a real phenomenon. So in this way, not just lifting weights, but in every way, try to emulate those individuals who are masculine. Look at people, again, in the past, even old movies, even a John Wayne type, something like this, an Errol Flynn type, you know, some man who is a man's man. Try to copy their behavior, see how they speak, see how they interrelate with others. And you'll see that really masculine men, truly masculine men, are very healthy. In other words, the stereotype of what it means to be masculine, that is, what it means to be masculine is, I have to be hyper loud and obnoxious and on and on. That's not what it means to be a man. Those are stereotypes. Indeed, a true man is not someone who's always blabbering. A true man actually tends to have a dignified silence to him. A true man does not denigrate, does not have to denigrate people around him. On the contrary, he's respectful, and for that reason, he's worthy of respect. A true man does not have to be constantly telling his girlfriend, his fiancée, his wife, well, you know, I'm a man, and you should respect that, and you should simply listen to what I say. No, that's not a man. That's a boy who would like to be a man. But what it means to be a true man is you conduct yourself in such a way that without you having to say a word, the woman in your life wishes to follow you and respect you without you having to remind her that I'm a man, etc., etc. So indeed, we can be men in a very healthy sort of way, where no, we don't have to be quote-unquote male chauvinist pigs. That's a very 60s and 70s thing, but I'm sure you've heard of that term. You know, we don't have to engage in so-called masculine toxicity, which there is no such thing. Now, if it's true masculinity, etc., we can have this balanced approach where, again, you can be a man and you can have dignity as a man. So again, more than anything, find role models and follow those role models as much as you can. So I hope that helps to answer your question. I went a little bit deep into that, but it's because it's actually a core question. These are the kind of questions I was certainly hoping to receive. Very good. Here is another very, very good question, and again, I will not say the person's name. It says, as men, can we think of the Guru as our spiritual father? Thank you very much for taking my question, and I hope to meet you someday. Likewise. Likewise, I hope to meet you as well. So the main question is, as men, can we think of the Guru as our spiritual father? Absolutely. Indeed, that is how we should think of the Guru, is indeed as a spiritual father. And this is true both for individuals who have had either good or bad relationships with their biological father. That doesn't matter so much. The role of the Guru is indeed that the Guru serves as a father, a spiritual father, and indeed as a role model. Indeed, this is getting back to what I was saying with the last question, that we are to seek role models. Let me state this very emphatically, because we know that unfortunately in our day and age we're living in a realm where we have so many tens of thousands of individuals who pose themselves as gurus, but in one way or another they actually are not. They actually are not fulfilling that role fully and perfectly. Well, one thing that it means to be a guru, if that guru is a man, is that indeed they themselves are to be as healthfully masculine as possible. There's the stereotype, as there is about anyone who's spiritual, especially Vedic, unfortunately, but this is true for the guru as well. There's the stereotype of the guru as someone who is very passive and calm to the point of, again, debilitation. There is a difference between being calm spiritually, meaning that you're unagitated, versus being passive. And again, the stereotype is that, the guru is someone who, yes, does not do anything manly. They don't go to the gym, and they don't act in a masculine sort of way. They act either neuter. In some cases, you'll encounter some gurus who they seem to act almost a little bit feminine, etc. There's this effeminacy about some individuals who claim to be spiritual. But you find this in many, many different places, and no, that is not what it means to be a spiritual teacher. On the contrary, a true guru, who is a man, acts like a man. When you encounter this person, you have no doubt that, this is a man, in every sense of the term. The prime example is Prabhupada. Prabhupada was not passive. Prabhupada was assertive. Prabhupada was aggressive in some cases. Prabhupada was a man of action, a man in the world who did things in the world in a very big way. He was a person who did not stand down in the face of evil. On the contrary, if evil ever approached him in any way, in the form of a person or a situation, he met that head on. Well, that's what it means to be a guru. And if you have a so-called guru, and that individual is a man, but they don't have these masculine traits, that's not good. Let me just state that in this way. That's not a good thing. On the contrary, the guru himself should be an individual who acts very much in a healthy masculine sort of way, such that all of his disciples, can see the guru as a spiritual father figure. But indeed, this is the case as far as personal modeling. This is the case especially when it comes to his male disciples. They should see the guru as acting in such a way that, now I know what it means to be a man. I have quite literally a living representation of masculinity here before me. And let me see if I can come close to matching him. So yes, indeed, that hopefully is the answer to your question. Hopefully that's the answer you were looking for. Good. Here is another good question, and I will certainly answer this. Namaste Acharyaji, Sri Acharyaji. It is not uncommon in the Western world for people to go out of their way and insult Sanatana Dharma and mock our scriptures, pujas, devatas, and devatas. I have never tolerated such insults and have never been afraid to aggressively confront such individuals. I hate cowardice. However, is this the right thing to do as a man? Please guide us as to how to react in this situation. Absolutely. Excellent question, actually. And let me just say one quick thing. You say this is not uncommon in the Western world. Sadly, this has been not uncommon in India as well, for very, very different reasons. I've been to India. I've known thousands of Indians over the years, worked with many, many, many Indian Hindu leaders over the years, etc. Yeah, and sadly, this sometimes is the case even in India itself, where we know that many so-called Hindus are nominal Hindus, and they themselves will sometimes be quite insulting towards Sanatana Dharma because they've been infected by Marxism, atheistic materialism, etc. So this is true throughout the world. Now, as far as how an individual should act when they encounter people who are insulting Sanatana Dharma, you expressed it in a very good way. And let me read again what you said about your own reaction. I have never tolerated such insults and have never been afraid to aggressively confront such individuals. I hate cowardice. Very good. Yes, this is indeed generally speaking, but then I'm going to go a little bit deeper. This is generally speaking how an individual should react when someone is in their face or online or something insulting Sanatana Dharma. That is, again, we should not be passive and simply very quietly sneak away from the situation. Indeed, cowardice is itself the very opposite of what it means to be a man. Indeed, what it means to be a man is that we are to be brave, not bravado, not brave in a silly way, where we just make ourselves look silly because we're overly aggressive. But no, we have to be brave. We have to have courage. And what this means is that when we find someone who insults any aspect of Sanatana Dharma, the first thing that we are to do within a microsecond is breathe and be calm. Our strength, the strength of a dharmi, the strength of a true man, interestingly, comes from his place of calm. So this is the first thing that we are to do, is be very calm, but at the same time unblinking. And we are to look at that person calmly in their eye and respond to them in a quick way, not engage in endless debates, but simply explain to them, no, sir, madam, whoever it is, what you have said about my religion is untrue. I'm sure you read a Wikipedia article that told you X thing, or maybe you heard from some imam or Christian preacher that we followers of Sanatana Dharma believe X or do X. Let me assure you that the information that you got was wrong. This is what we do, this is what we believe, and I would ask, please, that you not insult my religion again in the same way that I would never insult your religion. We are to say it again without anger, calmly, decisively. And at that point, the person will either come to their senses and realize, oh, all right, well, I completely disagree, but I guess, yes, I should not be disrespectful. And they'll apologize. And if they don't, then at that point you have said what you have to say. You have planted that seed of dignity, of your own dignity, the dignity of Sanatana Dharma within that adversary's mind. And at this point, you withdraw from the situation. You don't go on and on, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That in and of itself is actually an unmasculine thing to do. This is why I'm against debate. To go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, that is itself unmasculine. A man, again, states his position. He states it calmly. He states it strongly. And then if that individual continues to be offensive, at that point, a true man withdraws from the situation, having done his duty. So this is how we are to react in such situations. So I hope that answers the question. Good. Here is another very good, very interesting, very pertinent question. And it is, Namaste Acharyaji. This is a personal question. In the workplace where I am working hard and getting passed over for promotion or advancement by others because of equity, what should I do to take care of myself and career? There is, of course, anger and resentment on my part, and meditation, physical training helps curb these feelings. However, I also have the feeling of helplessness, as if I am to be a domesticated animal who has no say in his own future. Well, first of all, let me say you have my absolute sympathy. I'm very, very sorry that you're going through this truly terrible situation. This must be extremely frustrating. I and others, I'm sure, can imagine how frustrating this would be. That it sounds like you're very committed to your job, to your career, to what you want to do to sustain yourself and those you love. And yet, despite that, it must feel like you're smashing your head against a wall, trying to get through that wall, and you can't. So again, I'm very, very sorry that you're going through this. Again, I'm going to repeat this because A, it's true, and B, it's important for you to hear this. Of course, you know that you're not alone. You know that other men specifically experience similar sorts of things in their fields, and it is part of the demonic culture today, where, indeed, men are not valued anymore. And when you try to do the right thing and you are doing everything that you can to be a good person, a virtuous person, work hard at your job, etc., etc., many men today have found that often that is not even enough. And that despite all your best efforts, you're going to be punished very simply for being a man. And it's very, very terrible, horrible, unfortunate, and it has to change, and it will change in time. So that's the global view, is that please understand what the situation is. As far as your reaction to this, and that is, as you said, let me read once again how you said this, that you, of course you say there's anger and resentment on your part. On the one hand, again, it's understandable. On the other hand, of course, you know that as a man, yes, the anger and the resentment come. You can't pretend that they're not there, acknowledge them, but then move on to something more constructive. And that is to doing anything that you can to both very practically make sure that you can indeed have the promotions that you deserve at that job. That is, approach whoever is the supervisor or boss in a very, very respectful way, and just speak to them if you need to. Continue to work hard. You see, it's very easy when something like this happens to then feel discouraged and to just begin to kind of slack off. That's not going to help. That will do the opposite of helping. Continue to work hard, but at the same time, if you need to, again, in a non-confrontational sort of way, in a very diplomatic way, speak to someone who is there, see if something can be done. Another option, and again, I don't know what your profession is or if this is even a possibility in your profession, try to do something in such a way that you can work for yourself. You see, this is why I tell people very often, if you find that, you are truly suffering in a workplace where you're working for someone else, you know that you're being abused, you know that you have zero chance of being promoted, etc., etc., continue to work there, don't quit your job. But rather, as you're working there, do everything that you can to create your own business. And that means either within the same profession, but truthfully, it doesn't have to be. Just find something that you're very good at, that you love doing, that with a lot of research, you see that, yes, I can start a business like this. Work for yourself if push comes to shove and you have no choice. You see that regardless of anything that you're doing there, other people are going to be favored over you, and there's nothing you can do. Try to start your own business if you can. It is easier to do than people think. Actually, I've guided many, many people in starting their own business, and I've guided many, many people who have corporations, not just businesses. And let me tell you, it's easier to do than you think. However, it's not easy to perform. In other words, you're going to have to work very hard, harder with your own business than working for someone else. But the reward is infinitely greater because you're your own boss. And you derive the benefit of your sweat and labor, not someone above you. So try to do that if you can. And if you're in a situation where you cannot do this, then, at some point in the future, ask me more questions that are more specified, and I'll see if I can hopefully help you specifically with your situation. But I hope these were some hints as far as what you can do. This is the important thing. Let me end by saying this. Not even so much with your present job, certainly with that as well, but with your life. Please never give up. Even in the face of being abused by others, please never give up. You know, this is the Kali Yuga, unfortunately. So many millions of people are being abused in one way or another. And do not give up. Understand that in time, God will open avenues for you in which you no longer have to be in this situation. So don't give up. Good. Here's a very nice question. And it's, Namaste Acharyaji. I've heard that rationality is a virtue in masculinity. Where do emotions come into the equation? And how does one maintain the balance between being a cold-hearted automaton and a violent hurricane? Thank you sincerely. Good. Very nice. Well, this is definitely a very, very good question, actually. An excellent question that, again, I'm going to keep repeating this because it's true. So many men today experience this, where on the one hand, yes, first let me say this. Yes, rationality is indeed a masculine virtue. You know, there's no way around this. This has been recognized by all the ancients, regardless of the culture, regardless of the religion, etc., etc. This is one of the inherent attributes of what it means to be masculine in essence, is that indeed a true man tends to veer more toward rationality, being logical, thinking things out, etc., and much less emotional. And when I say much less emotional, I don't mean merely being emotional, but resorting to emotion. See, there's a difference. A man can be emotional for the right reasons versus resorting to emotion. This is the crux of the issue. And that is a male who is not fully exhibiting his masculinity resorts to emotion. In other words, something happens and his first knee-jerk reaction is to cry, is to get angry, etc., etc., is to resort to emotion. A man must not do this. When a man faces any important situation or occurrence in his life, indeed, a true man does everything in his power to be calm-headed about what is occurring and try to figure it out. You see, you know, people know this. Even people who wish to try to deny it. Everyone knows that, you know, what is the first reaction of a man to any situation, including any crisis, let's say that his wife or girlfriend is having? The first reaction of a man is, how can I fix this? How can I fix it? Not so much, oh dear, you're having these emotions, speak to me, tell me every single nuance and detail of why you're upset, etc., etc. You know, a man can do that, but that's not his first instinct. His first instinct is, oh my God, my wife is crying. What's wrong? What's wrong, dear? Oh, okay, that's the problem. Okay, this is what we do. This is what a man does. They try to fix. And again, people can try to lie and deny it as much as they want. No, that's part of the essentialism of masculinity, is that men indeed tend to be rational. So indeed, we need to understand this distinction. A man should not resort to emotion rather than masculinity. A true man does indeed try to approach everything in a very intelligent sort of way. Now, on the other hand, this idea that, again, these are the stereotypes of masculinity. This idea that a man can never be emotional, a man never sheds a tear, etc., that is utter, absolute nonsense. That was mined from the darkest recesses of the Kali Yuga. That has nothing to do with any traditional understanding of what it means to be a man. Indeed, on the contrary, we have seen great men, the likes of which even some of the most masculine men of today, they can't reach the heights of the masculinity of some of the heroes of the past. And we've seen that even some of the greatest men of the past, they love. When they love tremendously. They love their children. They love their wife. They love their people. with an emotion that is brimming and bringing tears to their eyes. No, real men feel. But this is the thing. It is a natural, organic occurrence. They're not using the emotions to make decisions. Again, they're not resorting to emotions. They're experiencing emotions. And there's nothing wrong with this. A real man with biceps bigger than most people's heads, and who would walk amidst, in the middle of lions and not be afraid. A real man like that can cry. And indeed, if he doesn't for the right reasons, again, he's imbalanced. There's something wrong with that individual. So indeed, there's nothing wrong with experiencing and even expressing positive emotions. Now, this leads to something else. Emotions are not all the same. Negative emotions are as much as possible to be avoided within reason. That is, you mentioned anger very specifically. Yes, as much as possible. You mentioned a violent hurricane, violent hurricane of anger. Yes, this is not something that is conducive to making good decisions. So a man should indeed, as much as is possible, avoid such anger. Avoid extreme excesses of sadness, depression, etc., etc. Good emotions, on the other hand, that arise due to sattvic stimuli, that is extreme happiness, extreme love, elation, things like this, these are positive emotions. And such emotions are to be experienced, and again, when appropriate, expressed as well. You see, it's not that the man should cry even for positive reasons at the drop of every hat. No, there are times and places where it's perfectly fine to express such emotions. But indeed, there's nothing wrong with expressing such emotions. So this is the balance that an individual has. That no, we are not to be cold-hearted automatons. On the contrary, this is what our enemies want us to be. They want us to be like automatons in every way, actually. We're not to be automatons. We are to be persons, personalities, living beings, reflections of God. And what this means is that as men, we are as strong as possible. We are as self-controlled as possible. We are as logical and reasonable and rational as is possible. But at the same time, we are loving men. We are loving men. And that means if we cry when we see our child born, cry. That means at the right place and time and for the right reason. Don't be afraid to cry. Don't be afraid to express happiness and love. That is the balance. Very good. Here is another question that was an anonymous question sent in private. So I don't know who this person is, and that's good. That's perfectly fine. And it is Namaste Sri Dharma. Thank you very much for this talk on a very important topic, which is masculinity. I wish to ask what a man who is a follower of Sanatana Dharma, what should such a person do if he is in a relationship with an adharmic woman due to bad karma? Is divorce an option? Thank you very much for your helpful talks. Namaste. First of all, yes, this is a truly terrible and painful situation when such a situation occurs, that you are a man who you wish to follow Dharma. And of course, I don't know the full circumstances of what you're talking about, so let me just speak about this in general. Let's say you are an individual who you very sincerely wish to know God and to be virtuous and to follow this ancient path of Sanatana Dharma in such a way that you are honoring your ancestors, honoring the gods in such a way that you will bring to full fruition your true self and knowledge of self, and that you will know God perfectly, etc. And this is the thing of central value to you, and yet, sadly, you're with a woman, whether it's your wife or whoever it is, who in many ways is the very opposite. And you say actually adharmic here, so I will take that literally, so meaning literally the opposite. What the values that you have are the opposite of the values that this individual has. Well, this indeed is a terrible situation that does again occur many times, especially today, within not just the context of the Kali Yuga, but today, 2022. where indeed for one reason or another, two people find themselves attracted to each other and now they're kind of stuck together. And what often happens is that is what occurs, and then of course the man becomes a very sincere follower of Sanatana Dharma and the woman does not follow. Well, again, very, very terrible situation. Let me explain a few options as far as what is to be done with this. And you ask about is divorce an option? I just remembered that. So let's say that it's not just a relationship, but specifically marriage. Several things are to be done. First of all, let me state this very kindly but very bluntly. This is indeed the traditional approach to a married life in all real and legitimate traditions, both spiritual and culture, Eastern, Western, wherever it is. And that is that the man, the husband, the father is the head of the household. You are the guru of the household, and not in a matter of being dictatorial and totalitarian and blah, blah, blah. No, but in that you have a great responsibility. That is, you are to lead the family, and that means in every way, including spirituality, including religion. Again, this was the traditional understanding of pretty much every single culture upon the face of the earth up until about 50 years ago. So that being the case, this is the first thing that I would say, just very generally, is that indeed, as the man of the household, it is incumbent upon you to act in that way. That is, especially when it comes to things of vast importance concerning your family, and spirituality being one of them, you are indeed to explain that, yes, this is going to be a spiritual household. And you don't explain it with arrogance, you explain it with quite a bit of humility, but at the same time strongly. It's not a matter of debate. It's a matter of, yes, we are going to be a spiritual household, and you explain why. Again, it's not just a matter of dictating, it's a matter of educating. It's a matter of then explaining to your wife that, yes, this is why spirituality is of importance. We have something sacred here. We have a relationship, we have a marriage, a family that is hopefully based upon love. That being the case, of course we have to embrace spirituality. Because what it means to embrace spirituality is that you are bringing to fruition the very culmination, the very height, the very meaning, the very fulfillment of that love. So this is what it means to be a spiritual family. We claim we love each other. What does it mean to love each other, but to then not also wish to strive in each other's company, hand in hand, lovingly, to strive to bring ourselves to our greater selves and to have God in the center of our life. So in other words, educate your wife. Talk to her. Teach her. But again, in a no-nonsense way. It's not a matter of debate. Explain that, yes, we are going to be a spiritual family, and this is why. Because it will give our family every good thing that it needs to the maximal degree. Versus being the opposite of spiritual, meaning living like two dogs living together, two cats living together. What it means to be non-spiritual, a non-spiritual so-called family, is that it's, again, like two animals living together. Why are you together? For all the materialistic reasons. For lust and comfort. Well, we don't wish to live like animals. This is what you explained to your wife. We wish to live as superb human beings and in love. And this is how we wish to raise our children. This being the case, again, you do everything in your power to educate your wife. Now, all this being said, you ask, is this due to bad karma? It's due to several things. Certainly karma is a part of it, but also, again, you are both two free-willed individuals. If your wife has chosen to be adharmic, that's what she has chosen. She's a free-willed person. It's not a good choice, but it's her choice. So it's due to a variety of things, including karma, including free will, etc. And then you ask, is divorce an option? It is the absolutely very last option that should be there. Let me make this very clear. We are people who, we are opposed to divorce. We are opposed to divorce. The only time that divorce should be there is in the most extreme of circumstances, i.e. one's spouse is so radically abusive to the point where it's a danger. At that point, yes, that's a demonic situation. you are extricating yourself from a demonic situation. And that you're allowed to do in any circumstance. It's self-defense. You're allowed to defend yourself. It's not reasonable that you should, in an abusive, violent situation, allow yourself to be victimized in any way. But again, as far as divorce, I'm not going to give you the advice one way or another. Only you can judge this. But again, generally speaking, we are radically opposed to divorce, except for the most extreme of circumstances. So, long answer to your question, but I hope that indeed this answer was helpful to you. Good. All right, this is another anonymous question, so even I don't know who it is who is asking this question. And it is Namaste Acharyaji. Thank you for being with us to share your wisdom on this subject. My pleasure. Thank you also for being here with us. And you say, I am fairly quiet and withdrawn in general, and in the past was very shy, especially when speaking with women. I was given a very good upbringing from my mother and father. Though he was a good role model, I don't feel like he really taught me how to be a man, except in how he related to my mother, which was a good example. I do feel more confident today than ever before because of your teachings, my daily sadhana, and what I have learned on this path. My challenge is still overcoming my shy nature and finding places to meet potential women in person. I do wonder if a relationship is right for me. I feel bad thinking that that what my parents gave me might be wasted on not carrying forward their teachings to the next generation. Very good. Well, first of all, excellent, really several questions that are here. And let me answer this in, again, such a way where it may not seem systematic as far as the sequence in which you ask the questions, but this is systematic philosophically as far as how I have to answer this. First of all, let me say, as far as your being in a relationship, I assume that you of course are not in a relationship now, but that you would like to be at some point in the future, and I would assume in the immediate future more so than the further off future. Let me just say that is a good thing, to seek relationship with others. And let me talk about this for a moment. We in the International Sanatana Dharma Society strive to follow Vedic religion, culture, civilization, etiquette, etc., both perfectly, authentically, but also in accordance with, indeed, how it was practiced in truly ancient times. So we really strive our best to do this. This being the case, I've said this before, but I have not said this enough. This is why, on the one hand, we celebrate brahmacharya for individuals who are in that stage of life. See, this is the Vedic standard, is that we practice celibacy if you are in that stage of life. That is, again, if you're young, if you're under a certain age, and today that gets to be a little bit older actually. It used to be around 20, maybe it's around 25 now, for some people even 30, because people are kind of starting their life a little bit older these days. But in any case, a person should indeed practice celibacy when they're younger, when they are brahmachari and single, and then, probably when they're extremely old as well. Otherwise, the ISDS, as is true about Sanatana Dharma in general, is a household culture. This is a household culture in which, again, especially with the ISDS, one thing that we strive to do is to encourage individuals who wish to be in a healthy, monogamous relationship, a man and a woman. We encourage our people to do this in time. Again, if you're a brahmachari now, it would be quite healthy if your goal is to eventually become married to a wonderful woman who loves you and who you can love with all of your heart and soul, and to eventually have children and establish a beautiful family. So the fact that you are saying that, it seems you're indicating that, yes, that is what you would like to do. Well, that's a good thing. Please don't see this as, somehow a fall down from brahmacharya or anything like that. On the contrary, as far as I am concerned, and indeed Vedic spirituality, actually the height of what it means to be a fully functioning Vedic man in society is to be married, have children, and have a family. etc. So the fact that you seek that, that's a good thing. That's a very good thing. So that is the first thing. The other thing is you talk about your personal shyness. Again, I'm going to repeat this because it's true. You're not alone. In fact, if anything, there has been an epidemic of shyness in, especially the last 25, 30 years, since the birth of the internet and smartphones, etc., where people are not speaking face to face as much as they used to in the past. It used to be that, again, people spoke face to face. If you didn't speak face to face, you were at least on the telephone. At least verbally, you were interacting in a real life sort of way, in real time. But as a result of the internet and cell phones, and of course video games, the curse of video games, people feel isolated. They don't have as many social interactions as they used to in the past. As a result, yes, there has been an epidemic of shyness. So indeed, you're not alone in any way. And truthfully, in some healthy ways, it's kind of nice to be shy. It's actually good to be a little bit introverted and thoughtful, and someone who, you are often satisfied in your own company, etc. But again, there's a healthy way of doing this and an unhealthy way of doing this. And the unhealthy way is what often is described as this kind of, again, debilitating sort of shyness. One thing that I have seen in others, many students who have suffered from shyness in the past, many individuals I've known, is that the only way to learn how to swim is immerse yourself in the water. Now, of course, don't immerse yourself in water if you're, let's say, 5'10". Don't immerse yourself in water that's 7 feet deep. Start in the wading area and then slowly learn how to swim, etc. Well, in the same way, the only way to overcome shyness is indeed to put yourself purposefully in social situations. And there is no less painful way of doing this. When you do this, you're going to make mistakes. When you do this, especially when speaking with women, once in a while you're going to make a fool of yourself. Once in a while, out of nervousness, you're going to say something that, I wish I hadn't said that. Why did I say that? Slap yourself in the forehead, etc. There is no avoiding such circumstances where once in a while you'll make a mistake. But this is the thing. If you understand the importance of indeed being in a healthy relationship and overcoming the shyness, then there's no way around this. You need to put yourself in social situations and just do your best to be not self-conscious, but self-aware. And to always be telling yourself when, let's say you are conversing with a woman who, she seems like a very nice girl, very nice woman, and you're just having friendly conversation, you need to be self-aware, aware of yourself. And you tell yourself, all right, just relax, be calm, it's not a big deal, I'm only talking, we're just talking, and even if I make a mistake, everyone does, she'll make a mistake too. You can't put women, you have to respect women, but you can't put them on a pedestal. You must always respect women, but don't think that the woman you're speaking to is the incarnation, the earthly incarnation of some goddess who is a perfect being. That's a mistake. We all make mistakes. Men make mistakes, women make mistakes. Men have some self-doubts, women have some self-doubts. Just always remind yourself of these realities of social interaction. And when you do, you'll find that you'll be calmer. You'll find that you won't be quite as shy. And especially when you approach the woman as just another person, just relax. It's not that every single woman I speak to, it has to be the case that, this is going to be the woman I'm going to spend the rest of my life with, and if I make the slightest mistake, I'm ruining this. No, just relax and have a good conversation. As far as where to do such things, any healthy sattvic place that you can. In many cases online, you can if it is a healthy sattvic place, you can actually engage in healthy conversations. Men and women can talk to each other online and really get to know each other. Of course, you have to be a little bit more careful, only because, again, it's not a face-to-face interaction, so you don't quite know the person. But also, there are places that you can go to any sattvic place. Now, I've told people this before. Go to yoga centers where people are doing yoga and meditation. Go to a Hindu temple. Go, if you have no choice, go to a church even where there are good-minded people who are spiritual. Try not to go to a fanatical one where every second they'll be trying to convert you. Go to just a nice, happy church where there are good people and just interact with people. If there are any social functions that take place, engage in those social functions. With all kinds of religious institutions, often there are, post-service get-togethers that happen, etc. So go to any place like this where there are people, and I've said this in the past with a previous video that I did actually. Do not go to such places with the idea that you're hunting for a woman. That will be a mistake. Just go for the sake of going and making friends. Some of those friends will be men, some of those friends will be women. Some of those women will be completely single. Some of those single women, a few of them, will, in conversation with you, really like you and like to know you better. Of those women who like you and would like to know you better, some of them will maybe want to be in a relationship with you. So it's a win-win process like this. The important thing is to relax, not worry about it, and to ultimately, this is the important thing, find a woman who is good for you. She's there. She's out there. And this is the thing that must give you hope and courage. She's looking for you as much as you're looking for her. So just relax, let her find you. So with that, I hope that answers the question. Here's another question, and I will definitely answer this. Namaste, Acharyaji. How do we respond to people who justify cowardice and inaction in regards to societal issues by claiming that they do not wish to support the lesser of two evils, even though their silence ensures that the greater of two evils is always victorious in society? How do you respond, in other words, to the cowardice of such individuals who they claim that, oh yes, I'm just supporting the lesser of two evils, and they refuse to go any deeper than that as far as indeed encountering important issues of the day that are occurring in society? How do you respond to such cowardice and inaction? Unemotionally. Unemotionally. In other words, this is the thing that is of importance. Just like I was explaining much earlier about how when you're dealing with your children, whether you're dealing with any sort of situation, you are dealing with the other person in order to hopefully help them and not just get emotions off of your chest. So when you're dealing with such individuals, again, don't get angry, don't become emotional, remain as a true man, calm and dignified, speaking to the person with indeed kindness. A true man speaks with kindness, actually. They're not always speaking in the opposite. They're speaking with kindness. You simply try to persuade the person. However, you have to understand that not everyone can be persuaded. A person who exhibits cowardice, sometimes in certain circumstances, they can be encouraged, they can be inspired to transcend that cowardice and to then do that which is the right thing that they should be doing. But at the same time, it has to be acknowledged that some people will never change. Indeed, these are the NPCs. I love that term, that's why I use it so often. I don't play video games. I've never played a video game in my life. I detest video games, and I try to help people grow up and become real men and stop playing video games. But this is the only good thing that has come from gamer culture, is this term, NPC, non-player character. That indeed we must acknowledge that there are many people. How many? Who knows? Half the people, the majority, who are NPCs. In other words, they just do what they're told. They're just automatons. They don't really have any serious inner life to them whatsoever. They just want to get along. They just want to do what is necessary to not become a target, etc., etc. That's the majority. When you determine that the individual that you're speaking to, this is their nature, at that point you leave them alone and you go on. You go on. You try to inspire someone else who's not an NPC. Maybe they're acting a little bit like it because they know nothing better. but you could be an example to them that, you know what? No, you can lead a more courageous life in which you have virtues and you are standing up for those virtues as much as possible. So, in other words, if you cannot help person A in any way whatsoever, what is the manly thing to do is to acknowledge that and move on. Not become obsessed. That, all right, well, this person, no matter what I say, they don't seem to get it, let me keep saying. Well, that's a waste of time. At that point, you move on to other people who do have the ears to hear as much as possible. So, I hope that answers the question for you. And this question is, first of all, you say Namaste Acharyaji in Sanskrit. Yes, I can read Sanskrit. I'm not pretending. So Namaste to you as well. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and thank you for teaching Dharma. Absolutely my humble duty and pleasure. What is the Vedic standpoint in age gap in relationships? Is there a maximum one should not overstretch, or is this of no importance? Very good. All right, so let me answer this quickly because again, we're running out of time a little bit. So let me say, as far as age gap relationships, this is indeed actually discussed in Vedic spirituality. Indeed, there is a standard, yes, in the Vedic scriptures that I have read, where it actually says that the ideal is that the man should be older than the woman. I've actually read this. This is the standard. The other way around, not so much. I've never read anything either pro or con. It just literally is not mentioned, the idea of an older woman and a younger man. So the Vedic scriptures say nothing about this. But when it comes to what is considered an ideal relationship, and especially marriage, the idea is that, yes, the man should be older than the woman. And in fact, from what I've read, and again, this was a long time ago, I believe the age that was given is a minimum of 10 to 12 years, interestingly. So yes, this is mentioned in the Vedic scriptures, that the man should be older. That for, of course, many reasons that we can guess. Again, the man being the leader, the man being more mature. Oh, this is in the interest of the woman, that she's marrying someone who is more experienced, who is more mature, who hopefully has had more time to establish himself in the world as far as a career, save up some money, etc., etc. The woman should be younger so that she has more of an ability in a very healthy way to have children with the man, etc. So yes, for many reasons, it seems also psychologically, I've seen myself with many people I've known who have been in such age gap relationships where the man is older and the woman is younger, psychologically, and if I analyze it, maybe I could explain why, but it just seems that the two individuals get along psychologically extremely well together. Indeed, with most relationships that I've seen like this, both individuals are extremely happy with the relationship, and it seems that such relationships are taken more seriously and last much, much longer. There is a level of commitment that is there when the man is older and the woman is younger, that I've seen. There's a level of commitment that you don't find quite as much today when you have two people who are either the exact same age or maybe just a year apart, something like that. As far as you ask, is there a maximum that one should not overstretch? I've not seen one. Again, I haven't seen a maximum in any way. I'm sure that there is within reason. I would think that should be something that is left both to the individuals involved, but also, in accordance with the standards of society. I mean, I would imagine it would be bizarre and weird to have an 18-year-old girl marrying a 98-year-old man. That would be kind of crazy. But again, for very practical reasons. Just for very practical reasons. I mean, psychologically it would be bizarre, would be kind of weird, maybe creepy. But also just for practical reasons. The man could die at any moment, whereas this 18-year-old, one would hope would have a very long life ahead of her. So again, there's no exact age limit, but that can be determined in accordance with reason. So I hope that answers that question. It seems that this was a good idea because many people were present here today. There were many questions, there were many good questions, and there were many questions that stuck to the topic, which is very, very good. So I hope that this was helpful for our male students, disciples. So with that, again, I thank you all so very much for being here today. I thank you for being on this server. I ask you to please not just be here, but please feel free to be as involved, participatory as you like. Again, don't be shy. Feel free to engage in wonderful conversation with everyone here. Continue to grow in your understanding and practice of Sanatana Dharma in every way. Continue, please, to support the International Sanatana Dharma Society in every way that you can, either with your donations or with your participation or with your volunteer help. And with that, everyone, please take very good care of yourselves. Jaya Shriman Narayana. Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna. Jaya Shri Guru. Sanatana Dharma Jayate. Dharma Rashtra Jayate. Suryavansha Jayate. And with that, everyone, I ask you all to please take very good care of yourselves in every way. Namaste.